when you struggle with an addiction response to food and or drink, because so many of the women coming to me say, this is really a challenge. I just don't know how to overcome this. And I totally get that. I was definitely in that position myself. I know for me, getting clear, well, what is this? Like just feeling like there's nothing I can do. This is just really hard and really miserable. And I'm just really scared. And I don't want to change this because my eating and drinking is so important to me. I had just gotten to this point in life where I felt like the way that I eat and drink is so special and so important. And I don't want to lose it. But at the same time, I was having a wake up call about my health really going downhill. And one indication was that I was 60 pounds overweight, but there were a whole bunch of other symptoms too that went along with it. And so I had this big wake up call. It was about 9 years ago. I was thinking, but I'm not a food addict. I'm not an alcoholic. I knew I needed to change something, but I was really scared about what I would lose if I changed my eating and drinking. Am I just going to be sad and miserable and not able to eat what I love and not able to drink what I love? Now that I figured out how to change this, I got super clear about eating and drinking and habits and mindsets that make it easy. I realized my fears were very unfounded, but it's also part of the psychology of anything we have an addictive kind of response to. So I want to help you understand this. And I imagine you may be like me. You may feel like I'm not a food addict. I'm not an alcoholic, none of those things. So we're not going to talk about it like that. I don't find that is helpful. I find it's very distracting and it kind of leaves out people who are functioning really well and having a lot of success in life, like me, right? And like the people that I work with. So let's talk about how many of us might be having addictive responses to food and or drink. I'm grateful every single day. It's like 8 years since I figured it out and had all these changes happen. Every day I wake up grateful for how well I feel, how much energy I have, for understanding how to eat and drink in a way that gives me the best life I can have, not the most exciting specialness, right? Which I thought was the way to the best life. So I want to talk a little bit I want to really help you see what's going on with our biology and what's going on with our psychology that's causing us trouble with these addiction responses to food and drink and how we can get out of it, right? So yeah, I'm free of pain and inflammation that I lived with for decades, ever since an injury in high school. I'm free of cravings from food and drink and from it feeling just more important than I wanted it to be, right? I thought eating and drinking, this is important, it's part of my pleasure, but it had become like this outsized importance thing. Like, I don't think it should be this important. It's like where my money's going, it's where my time and energy is going. It's a little like a stressful obsession at this point, right? So breaking out of the worst eating and drinking habits was easier when I looked at both the biology and the psychology. And frankly, part of what I was doing, I think about it now, you could say we have two different parts of our brain, right? We have the really more wise, more goal-oriented, the executive function part of our brain. And we have the more primitive part of our brain that's just running habits, running things automatic as much as possible. And it's a little bit childish. It isn't thinking about the future. Who cares? Who cares about tomorrow? Today we're going to have candy and beer or whatever, right? So breaking out of both of these was easier when I started studying. And one of the things I was doing in studying is pulling out the thinking part of my brain, right? The problem is in our environment, so much of what we find to read is really reinforcing a way of eating that has become really problematic. So let me explain to you what I started realizing and finding about the biology and the psychology that was keeping these habits going, that made me feel like I don't know what to do. This is too hard. I've tried a whole bunch of things and things just aren't working. Once I started studying these things, I could see why the approaches I was using were not working and were not going to work. I had to take different approaches. So I hope this will help you. You don't need to consider yourself an addict or an alcoholic to feel like you could use a change in your eating and drinking. And in a way, making yourself have to pass a certain threshold is this sort of idea that I think is terrible, which is, well, if you haven't hit any kind of rock bottom, you don't need to do anything about that. I don't want to hit rock bottom. That's not how I see my life going, right? So people who are coming into my groups every day, following me, a lot of them are saying, I really struggle with really wanting and desiring and feeling cravings for and feeling very attached to certain foods and drinks. So I really need to change this, but I'm also really scared. And it wasn't until I kind of got this idea that I have to step off the path I'm on, take both of my feet off it and get onto a different path, not keep one foot over here. No, I need to keep this, right? It's understandable we feel that way, but let's talk about why that's going on. Because when you discover how to change your eating and drinking in a way that actually works, it can actually return you to so much greater health, along with the slender, healthy sized body. It can also be extremely liberating, like the strong attachment, obsession that I had with certain foods and drinks in some ways felt like this is a whole out of control kind of area for me, right? So it actually felt so liberating. It hasn't felt constraining to change my eating. It's felt like I'm in charge. I'm the one choosing. That feels good. I see this happen with people that I help in my Slender for Good program every day, every week. Like they're feeling liberated. They're feeling energized. Like it's psychologically wonderful place to live. All right, so without labeling ourselves, let's look at the biology and the psychology of having an addictive response to something. So when you look at the definitions of addiction, what do we see with addictive responses to things? So it can be a behavior or it can be a substance. It can be a drug, right? So causing a strong and harmful need to regularly have or do something. So for me, like sugar and alcohol both were things that I just felt like, I need it. I need it every day. I need it all the time. It was just becoming stronger and more difficult to resist with more time. An addictive response to something is defined by dependency and craving. I can't say no to it. I have to have it every day. Sugar became something that I needed after every meal. And I now consider alcohol a type of sugar. It's definitely hitting our brain with a bunch of sugar. So it felt like, yeah, I need this and I crave this. There's also an inability to say no, an inability to abstain, right? So I definitely had that about all these things. If somebody had potato chips or corn chips, they were things I couldn't say no to. Now I'm so glad to be free of that because it was ruining my health. It wasn't easy for me to say no. I felt almost unable to say no to lots of these things, lots of the processed things. And so that's an indication of an addiction response. Here's another one: impairment in behavioral control. So ever feel like you can't stop? Like, okay, I just read the package. This is one serving. Yeah, I'm not going to stop here though. I don't want to stop. Can't have just one, right? The food industry has learned how to make the foods as addictive as possible. And this is really working to steal our brains, to hijack our brains. So another indication that we're having an addiction response is we have cravings for it, which feels different from, oh, I think such and such would sound good today, right? It's more like, I need it. I have this like dramatic excitement and hunger for it. So those are indications that something is addictive. So what's going on with our biology with these things, right? So one part is how our brain responds. Our brain can be this great friend to us, and it can be our worst enemy. So recognizing what's happening with our brain in terms of addiction behaviors and addictive foods and other substances can really help. So we come to feel like we need the addictive substance. When you watch somebody, or even sometimes you might watch yourself and go, this is ridiculous. Like, I should have stopped a long time ago, or I said I wasn't going to have this today. What is wrong with me? Or you watch somebody who is like ruining their job, their family, etc., because of their drive to have the addictive substance, right? So we come to believe we need it. It's like the best thing in the world. It goes with all important activities. It goes with celebrations. It goes with sad moments. It goes with mundane life activities. It goes with 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It goes with certain emotions. Most uncomfortable feelings that I would have by the end of the day would feel like definitely this requires a glass of wine. But especially if I felt angry or upset or irritated with anyone. And I don't know if you experience that. A lot of the women that I've worked with have said the same thing. Like, I almost can't tolerate feeling I'm mad at somebody or somebody else is mad at me. Like, I don't know how I could get through that moment without a drink. Well, that doesn't feel good. So what is going on biologically? Well, there's these two systems in our brain. There's the dopamine desire circuit, and there's the dopamine control circuit. So when you're at an event and you pass up all the desserts, you just walk by that, or you say no to the glass of wine, even though you'd kind of like it, you're in the dopamine control circuit. Yeah, we're not doing that right now. That's not what we're doing. But the dopamine desire circuit can get triggered where it's like, wow, I'm really having to use all my willpower to say no. And then we can feel a lot of stress, right? The desire circuit is exciting, right? It's driven, it's seeking, it's looking for the next thing, and it's never satisfied. So that's one reason we just keep eating and eating or drinking and drinking, because the dopamine desire circuit got triggered, and that is designed to drive us for more, more, more. There's a never satisfied kind of feeling about it. I know I felt kind of ashamed of myself for that, but that's part of what happens with anything that's extra super pleasurable, that gives us an extra fast boost of either calming chemicals or exciting chemicals. Anything that hits our brain fast feels special. It gives us this rush of dopamine in our brain, and our brain takes that as, this is important. It's called the salience effect. This is important. Pay attention. Remember this and get more. Where are you going to get this tomorrow? Do you remember where this is? So our brain is doing all of that, right? Eat this, drink this, do this activity every chance you get. It seems important. So it's because it's triggering into the part of our brain that's designed to promote survival behaviors. Get food, make babies, right? Win competitions. It's like eat more now, because tomorrow there may not be food, right? So this has served humans throughout most of history, but now our environment is more full of highly processed, non-nutritious food-like substances. Let's put the C before that. Cravingful, highly processed, non-nutritious food-like substances. Our environment's more full of those things than it is full of real food. And now this aspect of our brain functioning leaves us hijacked by the extra pleasing, extra addictive substances like sugar and alcohol and processed foods. So the brain isn't responding to what's true or what serves the highest good for our lives or what will give us the best health for the longest. It's just responding to the big hits of dopamine, the fast hits, and interpreting them as important, get more. So dopamine is this driven kind of chemical. It's not the pleasure chemical. It feels like it is, but it's the desire chemical. So we get a pleasure response that drives us to want more. So it's not the feeling of, it's the feeling of, where am I going to get more of that? How can I get more? So research keeps showing that when anything gives us a big dopamine hit, it triggers us not to, as we have more of it, we eat or drink more of it. One of mine was Diet Coke, by the way. It's like super addictive, super hard to cut back on. It triggers more wanting, not more enjoyment. I didn't, the first sip of the Diet Coke, opening the can, having the first sip, that was the most pleasurable part of the experience. And I wanted more and more and more. I didn't get more pleasure. I just got more, like I need to get more of this tomorrow kind of feeling. And that kind of sucks, right? We're kind of in a trap. So you can tell you're having something in your life is causing an addictive response when it's a fast, extra big kind of pleasure response that you end up feeling like this is a must have. I can't do without this. I can't say no to it. You find you can't really eat or drink it in moderation very well. You crave it. So we talk about cravings like they're a good thing in a way, right? Food, that is so good. I love that. We say all these things. We're starting to get into the psychology, right? We spend undue amounts of time and energy and money seeking out the things that give us those big, fast dopamine hits. Again, we're starting to see the behavior of our response to something that's addictive. Another thing I always remember one of my most beautiful, wise, Slender for Good clients, Colleen, talking about hiding her behavior, making it secretive, like finding a way to go cut off a little more sweet thing, and try, how do I hide this now? You ever do that with, oh, I'm just going to have a little piece of this cake, a little piece of this chocolate. And then you're trying to, you keep going, you don't want to stop. And then you're trying to figure out, how do I hide this? How do I hide that I just did that? So all of these things are indicators that we're having an addiction response to something. Then what happens once we develop an addiction response to something that's outside us, something we're driven to go get? Now, nothing real or natural in the world that would give us pleasure gives us the kind of pleasure we're seeking. Only the food, the drug, the alcohol, etc., gives this extra pleasure seems good enough. Everything else seems boring and gray now. So we develop kind of a tolerance. We need more and more of it. So I'll share more about dopamine and other happy chemicals and the downregulation that happens in our brain that makes this so problematic and difficult to interrupt. One more aspect of our biology that's driving us to feel like we need, want, crave non-nutritious food-like substances, and that is our gut. Been so much learned about the gut microbiome and how much it has to do with our mood, how much it has to do with our immune system, and how much it has to do with pain and inflammation. I really had no idea. It's been exciting to study this stuff in the last 10 years. So what's happening in our gut when it comes to these non-nutritious food-like substances? So alcohol kills bacteria. It's just going in there and killing stuff. We need those bacteria to be well. I don't need to be killing off my gut. I need my gut. You know, my pain and inflammation I had lived with for 40 years pretty much disappeared when I changed my eating. And I'm pretty sure that goes back to the gut. So the gut was driving all this pain, chronic pain and inflammation I lived with for all these years. So I now keep a list of 100 people telling me, you know, it's amazing that this changed in my health and that changed in my health. Pain and inflammation, arthritic pain, needs for surgeries, etc. Many people report something changes in that area. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's also why people tell me, my hairdresser told me my hair is way healthier than it's been in all the years she's known me. People tell me all the time their skin looks better, etc., right? I'm pretty sure this all comes back to what's happening in our gut and how it drives pain and inflammation or not. The other thing is sugar feeds the bad gut bacteria. And so that starts to create an inhospitable environment for the good gut bacteria that we really need to be well. Now, the other thing that happens is those bad gut bacteria yell at you for more sugar. Bring us more sugar, lady. So our brain is yelling at us for more sugar, and our gut, the bacteria in our gut, they are yelling for more sugar. So you're feeling a lot of pressure. When you're able to say no just through willpower, you should really pat yourself on the back, because that's not easy and it's not that likely to work, especially at the end of the day when you're feeling any kind of stress or pressure, etc. I've just talked about the biology. I'll just quickly talk about, well, what's the psychology of having an addictive response to foods and drinks? So we talked about dopamine is causing this feeling of salience. Ooh, that seemed important. And it's really hard to resist that. It helped me to realize it only feels important, not because like some wise part of me recognizes this. It feels important because my primitive brain thought, oh, that seemed important because of the big dopamine hit. So the feelings of salience, feelings of attachment and obsession and stress can be partly caused by what's happening in our brain. And it can also be partly caused by just conditioning, just social conditioning, operant conditioning. I've always had this food or drink in this kind of circumstance. Therefore, it feels like it's important in this kind of circumstance. Like, how could I go to the movies and not have a giant thing of popcorn? I think the idea of experiencing stress around a certain kind of food is something to pay attention to. Like, I feel like this food is really important, but it also brings a lot of stress. Yeah, do I want that food then if it's causing me stress? Wow, when you discover how nourishing food can be, how amazing that can feel, how not having a stressful reaction to food is liberating and gives you so much energy back. It's so gorgeous. All right, that's part of the psychology. Another part is we have a whole litany of rationalizations. There's a part of our brain that cannot help rationalizing what we want to do. I'm going to do this. I kind of feel like I shouldn't, but here's the reason why it's okay today, right? Well, I'm really tired. Well, I had a really hard day. I'm just going to have a little. I'll make up for it tomorrow. I keep a good list of them. I really deserve this. I have trained myself to notice those phrases and check. Am I rationalizing doing something harmful to myself right now? I don't want to do that. Nope. I'm going to bring forward my thinking brain again and make a different choice, right? So part of what happens in our psychology is there's this defense of the status quo. This is what we do. This is our habit. Let's just keep doing it. Seems like what we've been doing will keep us alive. So let's just keep going, right? So there's a lot of things that happen in our psychology. Now, how do we change what's going on in our biology, and how do we change what's going on in our psychology? So get out of the trap. There's a trap here. What I finally realized is I'm trying to moderate things that I'm having an addiction response to. I'm trying to just have a little. It's not going well. It hasn't gone well. It gets worse and worse and worse. And I feel more and more shame. I feel more and more out of control. What if I just have a period of abstinence from everything that feels like that? From everything that feels extra exciting, from everything that feels like I can't stop, from everything that causes that kind of stress. What if I just really eat highly abundant foods for a period of time and abstain from all the cravingful, highly processed, non-nutritious food-like substances for a period of time? I picked a year because I really wanted to see, would this be life-changing? And it was so life-changing. And I wanted my primitive brain to see, we don't die when we say no to those things. Nothing terrible happens when you devote yourself to healthy eating. So many good things happen that I could never have discovered if I maintained my commitment to keep the non-nutritious food-like substances. I always think about Colleen when I talk about this, because so bright and beautiful and doing well. She didn't have a lot of excess weight. When she came to me to change this, she only wanted to lose 4 pounds. She said, I don't know if I should work with you because I don't have that much weight to lose, but I do have issues with my eating and my drinking that I really want to change because my mom is now developing dementia and I don't like how it feels to be so out of control with this. I mean, that's exactly what I designed my program to do. First, teach you how can you eat and drink in a way that gives you great health and vitality and lets you lose that excess weight and protects you from things like diabetes and heart disease, et cetera. And then the rest of the program, we spend months just changing our mind about what's good to eat and drink and discovering how to fall in love with the highly nutritious foods and supporting each other, right? Creating a community, because the community that we live in now has terrible dietary habits that we just swim in all the time that just seem normal. and they are ruining our health, right? So Colleen really used the program, the community, the coaching, and the exploration of, well, how could I fall in love with the good things and really fall out of love with the non-nutritious things? And it's so great to see, not only did she dropped 14 pounds, loves her weight, but how much health she's gotten back, how much her mood has improved, how much more she's able to do with her life, and how she's just bouncing all over the world with her husband traveling and just like loving life. So those dedications we have to foods and drinks that we have an addiction response to, when we decide that's okay, I'm going to step away from it for a while altogether and just see, does it change my life? Does it get way easier? Because when you try to keep a little, you keep yourself in that addiction response. Oh, I'm feeling like I need more and I'm trying to have less. And this is like stressful. Just abstain for a period of time and see, wow, my brain starts to see we don't die when we say no to that. Actually, we're finding our body's doing so much better. Our brain's doing so much better, right? So my message to you is understand a little bit of what's happening with your brain and your body. This is real stuff. So how do you overcome that real stuff? Not by yelling at yourself, stop it. Right? Don't do that. That doesn't help. You have to reclaim your brain and body through what you're eating and drinking, right? So we have to overcome our obsession with more. So you have to get aware every time you have that feeling. There's that feeling again of I need more of this, but it's not good for me, but it's not that bad for me. Like that's not a helpful place to be physiologically or psychologically. So abstain for a period of time, change your thinking and feelings. Like these things are not actually important just because I had that salience effect. If it's not good for my body, I don't want to feel like it's important. I want to really check that, right? Cultivate gratitude for what you have instead of what's out there that gives this extra special response. Like I just started purposely looking at plates full of colorful, nutritious food and just feeling gratitude for that. Every night when I went to bed, I actually did self-hypnosis for a while to help myself feel like, okay, I'm a little scared, but you know what? Nothing scary is happening. Actually, I'm getting my brain back. I'm getting my body back, right? Start to appreciate small pleasures, moderate pleasures over the most exciting pleasures. Like the good adulting, I started realizing, is finding pleasures in just the daily small things that you should have been having pleasure in all along, but they became super boring, felt stupid compared to the excess pleasure of something that gives an addiction response. So we change our behavior to get free of the biochemistry of addiction, and it feels amazing. Let yourself discover it's amazing. Keep letting new thoughts and new experience and positive emotions in. Does that make sense? Let me know. This stuff was super helpful for me to reflect on. It's been super helpful to so many people that I've been helping in the Slender for Good program. And if you feel like, okay, that makes sense to me, but I could use some help with this. I'm not going to just figure this out because you said it to me once and I passively listened. I'm going to have to do some active things to make changes. And I wouldn't mind having some coaching and guidance and support along the way. Reach out to me. I'd love to talk with you. I'm on a mission. We just don't have to suffer with this the way we're suffering with this. I'm going to cry again. All right. Take care. I hope this was helpful.